What I'd like to talk about tonight, just a certain amount of time, is I think something which we should really be very happy. I think it will cause us tremendous simcha, the insight that I'd like to provide tonight. And that is the following. If you really think about it, I think it's one of the most significant events in the history of Jews, what is about to happen. What is that? I had mentioned a long time ago, which is relatively really unknown to people, is that Asaph, or Edom, in the end, even though he went against Yaakov Avinu, and of course against the then after him of course was Rome and all the derivatives of Asaph, in the end of time, Asaph will do tshuva. And instead of persecuting Yaakov, he will assist him to do the tikkun. And I brought, quite a while back, all kinds of ideas and proofs to that idea. And it's even stated, as I had mentioned, one of the places which clearly says that is Rabbi Moshe David Vali, Ramdu, who of course is a student, Chovet Talmud, actually a student and associate of the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. But in any case, the primary idea is based on what the Medrash says. And that is that it says, Rav Ya'avoid Tzo'ir, and the Rav and the older one will serve the younger, which is of course the prophecy that was given to Rivka when she went to inquire about what was going on inside of her in terms of the two children that would be born. But in any case, that's what it says. So Rav Ya'avoid Tzor means that the older will serve the younger, which meant, of course, ultimately, that Asaph will serve Yaakov. He will assist him to do the job that Yaakov has to do, and together they will bring the tikkun, which I had mentioned quite a while ago. But the Medrash says something fascinating, and that is that Rav Ya'avoid Tzo'ir, since the Torah has no punctuation, then it could be read Rav Ya'avoid Tzo'ir. You see, that the older will persecute, afflict the younger. What does that mean? That means that Asaph really can relate to Yaakov in two ways. The first way he can relate to Yaakov is that he will serve him, and together they will do the tikkun. The second idea is that Asaph will relate to Yaakov also in the same concept, that he will assist Yaakov to do the tikkun, but not through the right way, but rather through the wrong way, which is Yisurin, or suffering. Because if you recall, there are three ways to do the tikkun. The first way is called mitzvahs, commandments. Second way is called tshuva, which is repentance. And the third way, of course, is Yisurin, or suffering. All three are called tikkun devices. And therefore, theoretically, Asaph really should help Yaakov in the concept of mitzvahs. So together they can do the tikkun, the rectification of the creation. But what happens? That Asaph can also assist Yaakov by being the nation that will persecute Yaakov, and through the yisurin, or suffering that Yaakov receives, if he deserves that suffering, he will also be able to bring the tikkun. Therefore, Asaph can assist Yaakov in one of two ways. Either Ya'avoid by helping him and assisting him to do the tikkun, or Ya'avoid by persecuting him. And that's a very important concept. But the question that you have to ask is, in what way will he assist him at the end of time? In other words, Asaph is Edom, as the Torah says. Edom became the Rome, and Rome, of course, is Christianity, and Christianity is Western civilization, and that is the figure of who Rome is today. And of course, that's what they've been doing. They've been tremendously persecuting the Jews for thousands of years, and the Jews have received, or are doing the tikkun, in one of the three ways, either mitzvahs, tshuva, or yisurim. And the ones who have persecuted the Jews, of course, they are persecuting the Jews and making them suffer, and therefore the Jews, as a result of that, can achieve a tikkun. So this is what's been happening. But in the end of time, I had mentioned that Trump is the form of Asaph that does tshuva, without going into whatever types of personality issues that he has. But fundamentally, what he really is, he is Asaph, or he's a Tov Sheba Asaph. He's a good part of Asaph, as I had mentioned, that will reverse the Ya'aved to the Ya'avoid. He will not persecute. On the contrary, he will assist the Jewish people to do the tikkun. And the truth is, we see this. But there are two events which are about to occur. One is May 12th, 2018, and the other is May 14th, 2018. And both are incredibly messianic. Now, what happens on May 12th? On May 12th, he's going to make a decision. Does he want to step back from the agreement that the United States made with Iran? Now, the Medrash says, which I had quoted, previously, that the Medrash says that at the end of time, in fact, it says in the week that Mashiach comes, whether it means the 7-year cycle of Shemitah, it says Poras, which of course is Iran, will make war with Arab, and Arab is Arabia, which is, it's incredible. This was written 2,000 years ago, that Iran will make war with Arab, which is Saudi Arabia. It's exactly, or threatening war. And then it says that Arab, Saudi Arabia, is going to seek counsel with Edom, which of course is America. And it says that they will, that Poras will instigate a tremendous war, really against the entire world. And Israel is in many ways going to be tremendously conflicted. What should they do? In fact, the entire world will be frightened. Obviously, this refers to the fact that Iran can go nuclear, or will be nuclear. And then it says that there will be a baskol, means a divine voice that is heard throughout creation for those who can hear this. And they will say the following, that the divine voice says the following, Higia zman geulaschem, the time of your redemption has arrived, which means that this war between Persia and the world, certainly between Persia, which is Iran, and the world, Israel, is the last war. And that's what the Medrash says. Higia zman geulaschem, behold, the time of your redemption has arrived, that this really is the last war. And the baskol, the divine voice, continues and says, all that I have done, and the God is talking to Israel, all that I have done is for the sake of purifying the Jewish people. So what do we see from this? That in the end of time, the last war is the war between Persia or Iran, and of course the entire world, especially the Jewish people. This is what we see. Now that prediction, or whatever you want to call it, prophecy, of course it's a frightening prophecy, because that prophecy indicates that Iran will succeed with a nuclear bomb, and that they will use this ultimately to make war with the Jewish people and even the whole world. But what is happening is there seems to be a change. What is that change? Which is interesting. Remember, everything can change in a good way. In other words, even if there's a prophecy that things will be bad, however, it can change because we don't know what the merit of what Jews do, how they influence the divine decrees. You see, so a prophecy which says that it's going to be bad can be changed. We see that by Jonah, when he went to warn Nineveh, and that was a prophecy, yet Nineveh was saved because they repented. We see that clearly. That's one of the reasons why we read it on Yom Kippur, and so on. So therefore, this prophecy can change. Will it? Well, take a look. Here you have Trump, President of the United States, that is certainly going to create a showdown with Iran. Now, he can go one of two ways, but one thing is certain. He can go the way where he pulls out entirely on May 12th and issues tremendous economic sanctions against Iran, and that will destroy Iran economically, because they cannot tolerate this. In fact, they're tremendously afraid. Their currency, the rial, is already down, I think, 40% already. And that will destroy their economy, which means that the whole nation will rebel against the mullahs, the clerics, and just throw them out. And they're deathly afraid of that. All the Khomeinis and all these guys are afraid of that. Or what he can do is demand an incredible change. But one thing is certain, he's going to demand a denuclearization of Iran. One, total transparency means we want to go in and see anytime we want, anywhere, what the story is. That's number two. Three, you can no longer make missiles that will carry these warheads. And four, you need to cut it out and stop all the terrorism that you're doing all over the Middle East, especially threaten Israel. That's what he's going to do. So either way, it's a showdown. And either way, he's going to take on Iran, okay, and severely either mitigate the whole thing or just destroy Iran. That's messianic. Because in the end of time, Iran is supposed to make war on Israel and the entire world. So what does that mean? That means that the Ribono Shel Olam has changed the decree. So he's getting Toiv Shebe-Esav, the good part of Asaph, and now we begin to understand the parameter of what Asaph is going to do, the good part, right? What he's going to do to help Israel. You see, we're just looking at this, which is astounding. Like I said, the concept of Iran isn't just another nation. It's part of the Medrash. It's part of the Medrash, the Yalkut or the Medrash. And this is messianic, and it's the last war. And God even comments on that last war and says that, behold, this, the time of your redemption has arrived. That's a statement by the Ribono Shel Olam himself, that this is a messianic war, or at the end of time. And lo and behold, Trump, aka the Toiv Shebe-Esav, okay, is going to neutralize Iran. Either way, but it doesn't make a difference. That tells us, okay, first of all, what Ya'avoid means. That if you want to know, well, Asaph does tshuva, that's interesting. To what extent? The extent is that he's going to interfere with Iran going nuclear, interfere with them being a terrorist state, and interfere with them threatening Israel. That's what we see. This is messianic. That means that the Ribono Shel Olam has stopped the end. Now, we don't know why. We don't know what merit the Jews have done, but it could be, who knows, the power of the Jews in the sense that they don't talk Lashon Hara, or the power is maybe they do incredible chesed, or there's a great deal of learning Torah, even though many Jews, unfortunately, are gone. There could be many reasons why the Ribono Shel Olam has decided that he wants to change the decree. So how is he doing it? He's using Asaph to change the decree. It's amazing. Who are they? Trump, who, as I said, is a messianic figure. He's a Mashiach of Edom, of course, not the Jews, but he's involved in the messianic process. And it's his job to protect the Jewish people against Iran, which is astounding when you think about that. Remember, it's not that he's just stopping Iran. He's stopping what the Medrash says is the end of time, is the last war. This is the incredible thing. You see, you have to really think about that, what that means, Like I said, let me repeat that for emphasis. It's not that he's going to neutralize a country which consists of a bunch of terrorists. That's great in itself. But what he's neutralizing and changing altogether is the last war before the coming of the Mashiach. That is incredible for those who have not thought about it. That's number one. But there's something else that he's doing, which I find to be one of the greatest, things you could ever imagine. That's how good it is for the Jewish people. In the end of time, there is supposed to be, it's predicted in Yechezkel, Lamed Ches 38, it's also Zechariah 14, It talks about the last war after the Mashiach, which is the war of Gog from the land of Magog. Okay? That's what he talks about. And there's all kinds of prophecy, but that clearly is the last war. Okay? What is the logic of all this, of Gog and Magog? What does it all mean? In order to understand this, you have to go back to Egypt. Evil has two phases. One is it tries to destroy good. Certainly, specifically, it tries to destroy the Jewish people from doing the tikkun, from doing mitzvahs and tshuva. No question about that. However, there's a phase two. When evil has been vanquished, really destroyed, they arise for a last push. It's like a star before it blows. Before it dies, it blows. It takes in all its energy and just gives it out in one monumental, cataclysmic explosion, which can I don't know if you know, but a nova can outshine galaxies. And we're talking about one star in 100 billion stars. Yet that nova will outshine the whole galaxy. Could you imagine how much energy is in that star? It's beyond belief. That's what it does. Evil does the same thing. Before it dies and while it's dying, okay, it can, take in all the, whatever energies it has, okay, and just explode in one fearsome explosion. That's the story of Egypt. The Kriyas Yamsuf, that's what happened. Egypt was destroyed. The Rebbeinu Shem destroyed Egypt in the 10 blows, or makas, and so on, right? He destroyed them, and that was the end of it, But that wasn't enough. They had to come back after the Jews. Again, that's phase two, you see. First, they kept them slaves for hundreds of years. And then, when they were finally vanquished and destroyed, they went after them again by the Kriyas Yamsuf. So Kriyas Yamsuf is really the last attempt of evil in some way to subdue good or toiv. And that's why the Satan, if you remember when I said once, that's why when the Satan is dying, he tries to gather all his kitrugim, all his prosecutions, anything he can pull up to try to destroy the Jews. And that's why at the splitting of the sea, he had all kinds of kitrugim, which is prosecutions against the Jews. The famous one is what the Mendel says, why do you want to save the Jews as opposed to the Egyptians, right? These worship idols, Jews, and the Egyptians worship idols. Well, you see a monumental attempt at the Sultan to try to save the Egyptians. Actually, it was the angel of the Egyptians, but it doesn't make a difference, He was working as an ally for the Sultan. Let's see, so we know that what happened at the end is a monumental attempt to destroy the Jews, which, by the way, I told you a long time ago, that this the event of all these people trying to topple Trump is the result of the Sultan dying. That's why. So he's trying to get everybody on his side to try to stop this man. Why? Because it's not so, they're afraid, of course, because Trump will take over the United States and he will destroy the swamp. He's going to drain the swamp, or maybe more accurately stated, he will drain the sewer, which is basically Washington, D.C., So they're all going crazy. That's their end of it, but that's not the real reason why they're being influenced by the Sultan. The real reason is because Trump is going to do to Israel what has never been done before, you see. So that's the concept of a resurgence of evil to try to destroy good. And we're witnessing now. Now, that's the concept of Gog from the land of Magog. That he's an individual that gathers all 70 nations, because I told you the numerical value of Gog or Magog is 70. You see, it tries to get all the people of the world to go against the Jewish people, and especially the Mashiach ben Yosef, right, to try to destroy them. And that, again, is the last attempt of the Sultan in some way to be victorious and wipe out the Jewish people. That's what it's all about. Okay, that's really what Gog and Magog is. Gog and Magog is nothing more than a repeat performance of Kriyas Yamsuf. Same idea. Okay. So we would expect that, you know. But if you recall, I said something very interesting, I don't know, half a year ago, or whenever it was, that who is Gog and Magog, really? Gog and Magog, if you think about it, right, is not a person, because God could change the form of Gog and Magog, okay? Gog and Magog, as far as I'm concerned, is United Nations. United Nations has the entire world sitting there, creating enormous problems for the Jewish people, okay? And like I said, Gog and Magog, the numerical value is 70, and the United Nations is United Nations. It's the entire world, you know, and they are really Gog and Magog. That's the form that the United Nations takes. That's Gog and Magog. And they are trying to destroy Israel. Specifically, Zechariah talks about what? Not just trying to destroy Israel, but to try to destroy the Jews in Yerushalayim, to deny the Jews Jerusalem, because Yerushalayim obviously is the major spiritual city. And we know what the UN has been doing is what? In fact, they came out with resolutions after resolutions, right? When Trump said that Jerusalem will be the capital, right? And so on. So the UN said, no, you got to change your mind. It was just incredible to watch how all of them almost were sit there. I think 139 nations voted against that. Okay, against Jerusalem going to Israel. It's incredible to watch. But if the United Nations is Gog and Magog, that would mean that we will not have a war of Gog and Magog, doesn't it? It's interesting. If it already happened, then it's not going to happen again. First of all, you should know that the war of Gog and Magog against Jewish people would have been horrendous. As it says in the Gemara, only 1 or 2 families of a city will survive. What does that sound like? It's a Holocaust. What the Baruch Shem did is he split the wars of Gog and Magog into 3 parts. The Chofetz Chaim says this, by the way. What part was phase 1? World War I, which destroyed hundreds and hundreds of Jewish communities. Even though it wasn't necessarily directed against the Jews, however, it did destroy, it changed Jewish life in Europe forever. It destroyed hundreds and hundreds of communities while they were fighting in Europe. So that's stage 1 or phase 1 of Gog and Magog. The second phase was World War II. And of course we know then, you know, the classic figure of Hitler, Yamach Shemai, as Gog, really united in many ways enormous part of the world against the Jews. And there you had the brutality, where maybe 1 or 2 families from a city survived. So what the Baruch Shem did is in phase 2 of Gog and Magog, right, he brought in the real brutality of that war against the Jewish people. He brought it in World War II. So that's phase 2. In other words, Gog and Magog already happened twice in 2 stages, you see. In fact, the Meforshim talk about, when you look at the Navi, you could see that the concept of Gog and Magog are in 3 phases, you see. So therefore, Gog and Magog really happened. World War I, World War II. World War II, of course, was specifically directed against the Jewish people. Well, it's not even indirect. That's what it was all about, you see. And so therefore, we already have 2 stages of the Gog and Magog, you see. And like I said, which is very important, that the brutality that was supposed to be in the end of time was given to the second stage. And that's why the second stage of Gog and Magog was something which we cannot even begin to absorb. 6 million Jews. It's hard for us to understand what 100 Jews are. 6 million is beyond comprehension, you know. And of course, the incredible tragedy is there's so many guys out there with revisionist history. Nah, it never happened. You're exaggerating the numbers. I mean, it's beyond belief what people say. But that's what the world is. That's the evil of the world. But what about Gog and Magog stage 3? That's the interesting part, you see. So think about this. Before, in other words, if the brutality of the Holocaust is really part of Gog and Magog against the Jews, right? So that's the last stage, won't be that brutal. It'll be what's called confrontation. That's what's going to happen, which is much milder. There will be confrontation, but much milder. And already we're seeing that in the form of the United Nations, you see. So that's a very important idea, that Gog and Magog, if it's going to happen, stage 3, is not the same as what would have been had God not split it into 3 parts. But now let's take a look at stage 3. If the United Nations is Gog and Magog, yes, where do we see it ending? On May 14th, there's something that's going to happen that is beyond belief. What is that? The major claim of Gog and Magog, whatever they are, UN and so on, the major claim really is what? Is that Yerushalayim doesn't belong to you. Eretz Yisrael doesn't belong to you. And therefore they're going to conduct a war. People don't make war just to say, I want your territory and I want your money. That doesn't happen anymore. You see, that's rare. People have to dress it up and masquerade it in some virtue, right? Like you got to give everything back to the Arabs. You see, they can't just attack you and say, we want to kill you and we want your cash. That used to be with tribute, Rome and all those guys. You see, today, conquest has to be justified by some type of virtuous statement. You see, and the virtuous statement is, of course, well, it belongs to the Arabs, or you got to split everything and give them half to Yerushalayim. That's the way it used to be, but not anymore. So that's what the nations say. But there's something happening on May 14th, which is the 70th anniversary of the Jewish state on the English calendar. There's something that's happening which is beyond belief. And I don't think anybody realizes it. We know what's going to happen on May 14th in terms of current events. You know, 250 people from America, senators, congressmen, a lot of people are going to go when they open up the embassy in Jerusalem. That's the date that it's supposed to occur. What does that mean? Well, first thing, it's incredible, is that there's going to be an embassy of the United Nations, of the United States in Jerusalem. So that means if somebody is born in Jerusalem, it will no longer say, you know, he's a citizen of who? Of Jerusalem. It's going to, he's a citizen of the state of Israel. Because now Jerusalem becomes Israel. You see? So that automatically is incredible. Second idea is that by making the embassy in Jerusalem and declaring Jerusalem to be the capital, which is the stamp of approval, when you move your embassy there, it means that Jerusalem is the capital, that legitimatizes the entire Eretz Yisrael. You see? That Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Jews, which I had said. But what's also interesting, and in many ways it's almost stunning, is that Trump said he may go. If he goes, why would a president of the United States go to the opening of an embassy? Think about that. That doesn't happen. Hey, you open up an embassy, fine. The president doesn't go to that. You send the diplomats. But Trump said that he may go. Why would he say that? And if he goes, it certainly proves this. If Trump goes to open up the embassy, or even if he doesn't, but when America will open up the embassy in Jerusalem, right? That means Edom now recognizes that Israel is a legitimate owner of the of Eretz Yisrael. That's what it means, yeah. But not only that, by making Jerusalem the embassy, they are making a statement, like I just said, that Jerusalem belongs to the Jews. But what's interesting is there are many nations that are going to follow. Okay? You already have Guatemala, you have Czechoslovakia. There's a whole bunch of nations that say they're going to do the exact same thing that the US does. And then once that happens, you're going to see a rush. You know, 10, 15, 20, 40, 50, 80, right? But that's interesting. Why? Because it will mean that the world, which it all started with Trump and America, Edom, Asaph, it means that the world now recognizes that Israel, and especially Jerusalem, belongs to the Jews. You see? If that's the case, there can no longer be a Gog and Magog, can there? Because the whole idea of Gog and Magog against the Jews is that, hey, Jerusalem belongs to us. But wait a minute. All you guys, all your countries have embassies in Jerusalem. So what are you talking about? In other words, it's the end of their taina. The whole point of Gog and Magog to make war is that this is not your capital. This isn't yours. You see? And therefore, there could have been an attack, whatever. But if all the countries slowly, right, are going to put their embassies there, that's an admission by every country that what? That Jerusalem is the capital. So it takes away their whole claim. So then if that's the case, there's no Gog and Magog. Therefore, if Trump goes to the embassy opening, what it will mean is that Trump, also known as a messianic figure of Edom, who represents Asaph, is now admitting to the Jewish people. In other words, the king of America, so to speak, which is Trump, right? Asaph is going to go to Yerushalayim, the capital, and he admits that the capital is yours. That's the Yavoid. What he has done is single-handedly stopped Gog and Magog. You have to think about what that means. So not only on May 12th, he's going to stop the last war, which is Persia, Iran, against the world, right? Because that's the showdown. But 2 days later, he's going to stop Gog and Magog. Because there's no claim. You have any idea what that means? That means that we don't have to wait until the prophecy of Persia, and we don't have to wait for the prophecy of Gog and Magog. That means we are literally at the threshold of the messianic era. Because those are the two things that had to happen, right? And they would stop the Mashiach from coming. But if these two events have now been, right, neutralized, removed, right? So then, wait a minute. So then what stops the Mashiach? It's already done. See, that's the significance of May 12th and May 14th. One stops the last war, as predicted by the Midrashim, right? Higia zman geulaschem. That means if it's no Persia anymore, then geulaschem higia. And the second one removes the necessity for Gog from Magog, Gog from the land of Magog, which was already done on stage 3, which is the UN. And Trump is now going to close the books on Gog and Magog, because everybody's going to have an embassy in Jerusalem. So then what are they going to claim? What are they going to claim? What's your embassy doing here? You see? And if America has its embassy, then what are you going to claim? It's already over. Because if America recognizes you, everybody will go forward with it. Everybody. You see? So therefore, what we realize, what the Yavoid is, that the change of Yavoid, that he will persecute, Asaph will persecute Jacob, is now Yavoid he will serve. But he has now done two things which are beyond belief. Asaph, Edom, Trump, right, has now done two things which are, like I say, it's incredulous. He has removed the last war with Persia, Iran, and he has removed the whole concept of Gog and Magog. Now, I think that is incredible news for the Jewish people. And I think that deserves some type of incredible simcha. You know, people don't realize what this means. Yeah, it's great news, you know. I mean, you know, you have guys there, Netanyahu, of course they're right. They're going to clap because Israel will have done one of the greatest victories where they're now legitimatized, right, to America, you know, to Guatemala, to Czechoslovakia. I heard that even Romania is now going to do it, you know. It's a slow trickle, but once it's there, and not only that, what's going to happen is if Jerusalem now has all the embassies, Jerusalem will rise among the nations. Remember it says in Eicha, Yoshe Badod, that Jerusalem sits desolate, right? Bezuya, right? Embarrassed, humiliated in front of all the nations of the world. Well, guess what? When you have the embassies of the whole world sitting in that city, what do you think it becomes? It becomes one of the greatest cities on earth. Jerusalem is about to leave its golus. All this on May 14th. You see? They don't realize what's about to happen. But I'm telling you, Pi Hashkafa, it is something which is almost, it's almost like a fantasy. That the war of Gog and Magog will not happen, you see, and that Jerusalem is about to rise into what it really is, the greatest city on earth. Something to think about. Go ahead.
Part of his deal has already been made because he's also won over Yishmael to a degree.
Yes.
Because again, the Crown Prince bin Salman told the opposition, you accept Trump's peace plan,
shut up.
or close your mouth.
Yeah.
This plan, there's no going back to changing where the embassies go.
Yes, which is, I'm glad you note that. I was going to say that, but you reminded me, yeah. Well, it's also incredible. Remember I told you, said Edom does tshuva, but look at what Yavoid is. We think, well, they're going to give Israel missiles, help them out with bunker bombs or whatever these guys got. That's not what Yavoid is. That's not, and Edom will assist Jacob. It's to stop the two greatest wars against Israel, both Iran and also, of course, Gog and Magog. What an assist that is. And of course, we just this week, Mohammed bin Salman, right? I mean, it's beyond belief watching this guy. He met with a whole bunch of Jews. He's been in the United States trying to curry investments in Saudi Arabia. That's why he's hitting all the big guys, the billionaires, and so on. But he also met with a whole bunch of Jews, and the first thing he told them that every country deserves every nation deserves a land of its own, Israel. And then he said to Abbas, he said, listen, but he said more. He says, for years you guys have been ruining opportunities, right, to make peace and to grow. You guys are still stuck, in the 12th century. That's the first thing he told Abbas. The second thing he says, listen, you got to get back to the table. If you don't get back to the table, quote him, shut up. And that's it. You imagine what Saudi Arabia, an Arab country, one of the main Arab countries, saying this to Abbas? It's like this is Alice in Wonderland. This doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? It's incredible. So that itself, you're talking about the tshuva of Yishmael. There you are. You see? So these things are happening this month. This month. And all the Arabs are on board basically with what Trump is about to do. That's why you don't hear anything, It's what has happened, just in the last, like I say, year or whatever, is something that we've never heard of before. And each one ushers says that we are literally on the threshold of a Mashiach. And I think the Mashiach is alive, and he's probably looking at this and say, wow, my job just became easier. And so on, that's assuming he knows he is Mashiach. Because stage 1 is where he doesn't know, and stage 2 is where he's informed. Like Moshe Rabbeinu for 80 years didn't know, then after that he realized, and so on. But there's no question about it, So these are these spiritual hashkafic significance of May 12th and May 14th, which is, today May 5th, what do you got? A week, 9 days, huh? For something of unbelievable significance, which is about to happen. Yeah.
What about the Erev Rav?
Well, that's a very good question. They have to go. The problem with the Erev Rav, you see, all the nations of the world, their problem, the harm that they can inflict to the Jewish people is physical. It's physical. The problem with the Erev Rav is they destroy the ruchnius, the spirituality of the Jewish people. That's what their problem is. It's not that they're harmful to the Jews. They're not harmful, on the contrary. The Erev Rav, especially the Erev Rav, the Jews and so on, Jews are not their enemy at all. It's Judaism that's basically the enemy. Yeah, of course they provide lip service and say, yeah, and so on, But these people are an active force to destroy the spirituality, the ruchnius of the Jewish people. And as long as they lead the Jewish people, then the Jewish people will not do tshuva, because they are the block. You will never have the wholesale tshuva, repentance, that the Jews must do in order to really bring the Mashiach. It cannot happen with the leaders of the Jewish people who stand in the way and block any spiritual growth. And therefore, they are next. How that will happen? Because remember one thing, the Erev Rav is the most difficult thing to remove. If you think removing the UN and Europe and Russia and all that stuff, that's hard. But really, the most difficult people to remove is the mixed multitude, the Erev Rav, that destroys the ruchnis of Klal Yisrael. Why is that? Because the Erev Rav are basically the frontline soldiers of the Satan. They are the frontline soldiers. The other guys are in the back, But the real soldiers of the Satan is the Erev Rav. And that's why they were unleashed in 1948, with the Mapai and Labor and all these guys, how they destroyed Jews left and right, which was beyond belief what they did, and they continue to do that, or less mildly so, because at least the Jews have a power to respond, because they're part of the Knesset and so on, But they destroy the ruchnias of Klal Yisrael, the real ruchnias, you see. And this is what's happening. So theoretically, they're next. Yeah. Any questions?
Yes. Wow. When Mashiach comes, will Trump sidestep for anybody?
I think so. I think he'll sidestep for the Messiah. But he will. But you don't realize. This is an incredible merit for him. Jew or non-Jew, this guy's going to collect big time. Because to put Iran in its place, to remove the threat, and to put Gog and Magog to remove that threat, is a tikkun which is beyond belief. And it's really happening because of him. America is part of that, but it's really him. And that's his job. That's why no matter what they try to do to destroy him, they cannot touch him. Because that's his mission. And if you ever want to know what was his mission, you're looking at it. May 12th and May 14th. That's the assistance. Ya'aved, Ya'avoid. That's what he had to do. Now you know why this man was elected. That's his divine mission. And boy did he follow through. Which is incredible. And like I say, when you will see that if he goes to open up the embassy, which is unheard of for an American president to do that. And then what it is a personal visit by Asaph, you see, to elevate the whole status of Jerusalem, because that's what's going to happen, And I heard he may take Pollard, which is, like I said by Rubashkin, that's an admission that we wronged you, and therefore I want you to go back to Israel. It's almost like Pollard going back to Israel is almost like the Jewish nation going back to Israel. It's like an admission, these things have so much symbolic value. It's incredible, But anyway, this is what certainly seems to be happening, So Jews should rejoice. It's just an incredible. I don't think really people understand what in the world's going on. They just see it politically. They have no concept and understanding the spiritual significance of what all this means. You see, which I've just said.